Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Greatly appreciate it. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Scott. I couldn't be more excited to dive into today's review. This is something that I've kind of fallen off the wagon with a couple of their other releases, but kind of got back on after having an opportunity to try this. So I'm excited to talk a little bit about the newest from the Little Book lineup. This is Chapter 8, Path Not Taken. Let's talk a little bit about that today on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. As I mentioned, we're talking the newest release, the Little Book, Chapter 8, Path Not Taken. And what exactly is this going to kind of have to offer? So I'll put up on the screen right now everything that this has blended within it. This is 99% rye mash bills and one bourbon that's been added to the mix. This is primarily going to have rye influence, but I'm excited to dive into this. This is the most rye-forward Little Book that has been released. So I'm excited to dive into, again, Chapter 8, Path Not Taken. So this one's coming in at 118.2 proof. It's non-age stated, but as I just showed you, this is all over the board in terms of the rye blends, the years, the ages, the percentages, all of that. And the MSRP is coming in at right around that $150 price point. Not super available. They can be found out there at times, but again, this is going to be more of a special type of release. So it's something you may have to kind of hunt down on occasion. But rather than waste any more time, let's go ahead and kind of dive into today's review. What I wanted to kind of also show is it does have this really nice kind of rich or burnt orange type of color. But one of the things I'll say is this is maybe one of the more oily whiskeys that I've seen in some time. I don't know if it's showing up on the camera as well, but my glass is extremely coated with oils just running everywhere. So that's an encouraging thing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if that translates both over onto the nose and on the palate. But let's go ahead and dive into this and see exactly what this one's going to give us on the nose. So right away, these big, beautiful baking spices. Really nice kind of honey note. Yeah, incredible spice factor on this one. Nice mint note. Some actual like nice vanilla or like just vanilla cake batter, something along those lines. Little hints of chocolate, more of like a baker's chocolate. Yeah, think of like a spicy chocolate. I don't know if it's quite like a chili pepper or something along those lines, but there's a really great, that baking spice. Feels a little bit like a chili pepper or something. You will have to really truly appreciate a rye grain note. That's really one of the predominant things. It's really jumping out of the glass for sure on this one. Here comes some of the herbal kind of characteristics of it. I'm going to say like a black tea, maybe more of that kind of grass or hay note, something like that. But it is very, very spice and rye forward so far. Almost feels, as far as spice too, that there's a little bit of this kind of aggressive, like fennel type of note. And if you know fennel, it can be a little bit goes a long way, and it can be very kind of aggressive. It's not super dominant. It's there, it feels like, but again, more of that really heavy rye grain, baking spice, lots of that type of rich and depth that this one has to it so far on the nose. The pepper on this, in addition to there being a little bit of that kind of chili pepper, feels like, again, either a white or black pepper, but a lot of those heavy, more herbal, rich, earthy type of characteristics that it has going so far. So interesting. So let's go ahead and see what this one's going to give us on the palate. Cheers. Wow. If a rye could slap you in the face, this would 100% do that. This is a rye heavy, spice dominant type of whiskey. Again, that very heavy, almost old style rye note. This isn't the sweet, kind of more MGP, other types of Kentucky rye. This feels like a more aggressive, gnarly type of rye, if that makes any sense. This is going to be, I'm going to say right off that first sip, a rye drinker's rye. There's not all of that kind of candied type of sweetness that some of the other brands are kind of known for. This is a much more herbal, spice-driven, more aggressive type of rye profile. But let's see what the second sip is going to give us. Yeah, again, more of that kind of herbal characteristic. Nice mint notes. I'll say there's also, again, a little bit of a chocolate type of note. But again, it's more of that kind of baking chocolate, that more like bittersweet type of chocolate note. Again, very much on the rye grain or rye bread kind of train, so to speak. It is, again, very aggressive. There are some of those subtle vanilla notes, not a ton of sweetness, I wouldn't say. So again, like I mentioned before, you're gonna need to be somebody who appreciates a really strong, more aggressive type of rye whiskey. The sweetness that is there, I'm gonna say, is a little bit more of a kind of a root beer. Again, you've got still some of that. I'm also picking up on a little actual ginger flavor. That's not something I get very often in really any type of whiskey, but I am picking up, you know, again, in addition to that kind of rye grain, that herbal characteristic, a little bit of a kind of ginger, more of a fresh ginger kind of note. Yeah, I'm gonna say 100%. You need to be a rye whiskey or an aggressive rye whiskey profile type of fan. Again, this is not gonna give you a lot of those sweet candied aspects as you get from some other brands. Again, this is much more of an herbal, mint, bittersweet chocolate, heavy spice, heavy rye grain type of profile. Now, it's something I dig and would probably have to be a little bit more in the mood for in order to want to sit down and sip on this. But again, I think it's different and unique because it's not the style of rye that a lot of other people are typically used to. Again, like I mentioned before, much more of an aggressive, old style, like maybe out east type of rye, something along those lines. So if you're looking for something that has much more sweetness or something that the vast majority of people are more used to, I don't think you're going to get that in this. But again, this also offers up that uniqueness from the standpoint of it is much different than a lot of the other ryes that a lot of us are actually used to. So I really like it from that standpoint. Again, I just think for anybody kind of jumping into this and seeing exactly what the makeup of this is, you're gonna need to understand that this is very rye forward, rye grain driven rye whiskey. So let's give you the final thought. So as I had mentioned, I think you guys have kind of picked up on most of that. Again, it's a very aggressive, more drying, old style type of rye whiskey. Again, it has a little bit of sweetness, but again, more of that herbalness, that hay, that straw, whatever it may be, rye grain spice, chocolate, pepper, little chili pepper. It has all of that kind of going for it. So just make sure that you're aware of that and make sure that's something that you may appreciate before you spend your $150 on this. Now, I personally really enjoy this because of its uniqueness. But again, I just wanted you to be aware of exactly what it is that this one has to offer. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to follow me kind of on Facebook and Instagram, those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out the Patreon link in the description below. With that, thank you guys again. And remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers.